The city of Antioch trembled. It was the 4th century, and the church was not fighting lions in arenas anymore. It was fighting confusion. Bishops debated the very identity of Christ. Was he truly God, or a lesser being, exalted but created? Into this storm stepped a quiet and dignified man, Meletius. Little is known about his early years, but we know enough to sense the providence of God at work. Born in Armenia in the early 4th century, Meletius grew in a world still recovering from persecution. The blood of martyrs had not yet dried in memory, and the church was learning how to live in freedom under Christian emperors. He became Bishop of Sebaste, a city troubled by theological disputes. Even there, Meletius showed what would define his life: restraint, clarity, and a refusal to be manipulated by factions. In 360, the See of Antioch, one of the most important Christian cities in the world, stood divided. The Arian controversy had fractured clergy and faithful alike. Some bishops denied the full divinity of Christ. Others defended the Nicene faith with fierce determination. The Emperor Constantius II, sympathetic to Arian positions, approved Meletius as the new Bishop of Antioch. Many believed he would support the imperial theology. They were wrong. On the day of his enthronement, Meletius preached boldly. He confessed Christ as true God, of the same substance as the Father. His words were clear, measured, and unmistakably orthodox. The reaction was immediate. The emperor felt betrayed. Within weeks, Meletius was exiled. Thus began a pattern that would define his episcopacy: chosen, rejected, exiled, and yet never silenced. The shepherd had spoken truth, and truth in that age came at a price. Exile was not new to Christian leaders, but exile without wrongdoing, exile for clarity, cuts differently. Meletius was sent away from Antioch, and the city fractured even further. In his absence, rival claimants to the episcopal throne emerged. The so-called Meletian Schism deepened divisions not only within Antioch, but throughout the East. Some bishops supported Meletius. Others questioned the legitimacy of his election. Political loyalties mixed with theological language. Confusion spread among the faithful. Yet in exile, Meletius did not retaliate. He did not organize rebellion. He did not attack his opponents. He waited. Years passed, emperors changed, policies shifted. When Julian the Apostate briefly ruled and attempted to restore paganism, he allowed exiled bishops to return, hoping their internal disputes would weaken Christianity. Meletius returned to Antioch, but peace did not return with him. Another bishop, Holiness, had been consecrated by supporters of the Nicene cause during Meletius's exile. Now Antioch had 2 bishops, both claiming orthodoxy. The faithful were forced to choose. It would have been easy for Meletius to escalate the conflict. Instead, he remained calm, pastoral, focused on teaching the truth of Christ rather than defending his own status. This was not weakness. It was strength purified by suffering. Through repeated exiles, 3 in total, Meletius became a symbol. He was not the loudest theologian of his age. He left behind no vast body of writings, yet his influence shaped the very leaders who would define orthodoxy for centuries. Among those who admired him were future giants of the church, men like Basil of Caesarea and Gregory of Nyssa. But perhaps most notably, a young deacon in Antioch named John would later speak of Meletius with deep reverence. That young man would become John Chrysostom.
To them, Meletius was not merely a bishop, he was a father. His holiness did not consist in dramatic miracles or public triumphs. It consisted in endurance, in fidelity, in refusing to allow politics to redefine the mystery of Christ. When the Emperor Theodosius I ascended to power and embraced the Nicene faith, a new chapter opened. Meletius was finally restored securely to his see. The years of instability were giving way to clarity, and Meletius, weathered but unwavering, stood ready to serve.
In 381, Emperor Theodosius convened a great council in Constantinople. The church still required healing. The Creed of Nicaea needed reaffirmation. The divinity of the Holy Spirit had to be clearly proclaimed. Division lingered in many regions. Meletius was chosen to preside over this council, what we now call the First Council of Constantinople. It was a remarkable moment. The bishop who had been exiled for proclaiming Christ's divinity now stood at the head of an assembly that would confirm that very truth for the universal church. History, it seemed, had turned. But Meletius would not see the council completed. During its sessions, he fell ill. In the year 381, far from Antioch, he died in Constantinople. His body was carried back to Antioch with great honor. Even those who had once opposed him recognized the integrity of his life. He had suffered without bitterness. He had governed without arrogance. He had defended truth without violence.
The legacy of Saint Meletius is quiet, but foundational. The Nicene faith triumphed, not merely through arguments, but through witnesses willing to endure exile rather than compromise. Meletius stands among them. He reminds us that holiness is not always loud. Sometimes it is the steady voice that refuses to bend. Sometimes it is the bishop who accepts exile rather than applause. In a world that confuses conviction with aggression and compromise with peace, Meletius shows another way, a way of firm gentleness. The church remembers him on February 12th. His life teaches us that truth does not need to shout. It needs to endure. And endurance, when united to Christ, becomes victory.